Good evening, everyone, and a very warm welcome to our 11th Climate Action Provincial Assembly, or Capa, focused on the road forward for BC's climate movement. My name is Tara Shishtarian, and I'm a South Asian guest settler coming to you from the beautiful city of Burnaby on the unceded traditional lands of the Hunkameelam and Squamish-speaking peoples, the Musqueam, the Tsleil-Waututh, and the Squamish nations. And I'm also your MC for this evening. Now, this event is being recorded, but the short breakout rooms, which we'll start in a couple of minutes, will not be recorded. To start us in a good way, we can acknowledge that Canada is the land of the First Peoples, the First Nations, the Inuit, and the Métis. We acknowledge and honor the treaty lands and unceded traditional territories on which we reside, work, and recreate. We are grateful for Indigenous knowledge and ways of being as we unlearn and relearn the history of Canada. We reiterate our commitment to DRIPA, or the Declaration to the Rights of Indigenous Peoples Act, as always, especially in light of the assault on indigeneity in our recent elections. Now, in the climate movement, we approach our work with commitment, dedication, and passion. Let's uplift ourselves collectively as we move forward. The Mexican poet Maria Sabina, a Mazatec curandera, medicine woman, has said, "Heal yourself with beautiful love and always remember, you are the medicine." On that very good note, let's begin our Kappa. Our purpose in this Kappa is twofold. For the first 90 minutes, we will explore how we can build a stronger climate movement in BC, sharing WeCan's new climate initiatives, drawing on the insights from the interviews that Juliana did this summer with 80 of our member groups, and sharing some of our current WeCan initiatives. Juliana has some great resources to share with us, so remain tuned for that. For the last 30 minutes, Kai Nagata will help us focus on the urgent matter of the Prince Rupert gas transmission line and, and how we can respond to the call for action and support from the Gitanyow Nation and the Union of BC Indian Chiefs. To start things off, we'll spend 10 minutes in breakout groups of 4 people where we invite you to get to know each other and the climate initiative you are active with. And the breakout rooms are open now. So, welcome back, everyone. I hope you enjoyed the opportunity to get to know each other. It's such a delight to share ideas in person. I just love it. Now, this slide, Guy, do we have your slide
I
up?
showed it earlier. I think that's
Oh,
enough. Yeah.
okay. So should I just go on to
Yes.
introducing Juliana? Okay. So now it's my immense pleasure to introduce Juliana Janot, our summer intern who was supported by the Pacific Institute for Climate Solutions for WeCan's members mapping internship. Juliana is not only exacting and thorough in her investigative research, but an absolute effervescent sunshine girl to work with, as those of you who have interacted with her will know. She has also exposed me to the wonders of the acea fruit. I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly, which is the elixir for youth. You know, I want to eat it, I want to drink it, I want to put it on my face, and I want to put it on my hair. You basically get where I'm going with that. Anyway, it's over to you, Juliana.
Thank you so much, Tara, for your introduction. And it's so good to be here and re-meet all of you that I've met during the summer. Just very grateful for this opportunity that WeCan has provided me. Yeah, so I'm going to be sharing some slides with you all to share with you a little more about the results of what we've done this summer. So basically, I wrote this report, this 45-page report on all the results that I've done, of this study that we've done during this summer. Just time myself so I can know. Okay, and yeah, so basically I've reached out to 204 member groups of Weekend out of the 293 groups. And out of those groups, we've conducted a study with 82 of them, which the study conducted of a survey and also a face-to-face Zoom interview. And we found out many, and then in the end, we did this big study results, and this is what we're going to summarize here. So 33% of this group sample were registered nonprofit organizations. So, and 44% were informal groups and 23% were charities. So we see that most of the Weekend groups are not registered formally. Skip. Oh yeah. In the end, like in total, with all the groups that I've interviewed, consisted of 4,749 active members, and general members, like more than 34,000. So it's a lot of people. And this was just a sample of all the Weekend member groups, right? So we have a lot of members. And 80% of the groups had between 1 and 50 members. So most of the groups had a small membership. And the largest group had more than 10,000 members. And the smallest groups that I've interviewed had just one member. So very diverse as well. And this is the main ways that the groups have been getting their funding. So 52% of the groups receive donation funds, 46% grant funds, 24% membership dues, 5% endowments, and 5% other sources. And then the group's classification. So we see that most of the groups are acting in their local municipalities. So 40% of the groups are acting in their municipalities, 34% in their regions. So by regions, I mean like Metro Vancouver, the Kootenays, this way. So more than 60%, right, are either in their local region or their municipalities. And while 21% focusing in the province and 1% national or at a global scale. And we see that 88% of the groups work in coalitions, 6% were faith-based, either related to like an environmental committee of a church or different ways in that sense. 5% were unions or workers groups. 35% were chapters of a bigger network, for example, the Transition Town Movement or Climate Reality Hubs, those things. And 3.7% were actual networks that were groups. And we see that 72% of the groups are directly involved with the local government in their municipality or the local place. And while 14% they said that they are not directly involved, but they keep tabs on what's happening locally with their government, while 11% reported that they have no involvement and they don't keep tabs on their local government, and it's completely apolitical. And 50% said that they are involved with provincial climate policy in some way. Oops. Yeah. And then we have the realms of climate action from Weekend, the 30 realms. And this is what we gathered from the results in terms of the number of groups that are involved in each cause. I'm going to let you look at it for a bit, and we're going to see the top 5. So, why is it? Yeah. So what's the top of the list? The 6 realms with the most involvement from the Weekend member groups are local government, in which 54% of the 79 groups are involved with that. And then public education, then transportation, provincial climate policy, biodiversity and nature, and working with Indigenous allies. Those are the most common causes that we're working on here in the climate movement. And then the 6 realms of the least involvement were first biofuels, in which only five of the 77 groups are involved in that realm. And then industry, BCUC interventions, stop coal, business, and climate litigation. Yeah. Sorry, I'm trying to pass the slides. Yeah. And then we also gathered a sense of what are the group's needs. And those are the needs that we represented on the survey. And this is what the groups reported for them of what they think that they would like to improve or yeah. I'm gonna pass it. Yeah. So those are the 4 most pressing needs that we identified. The first one that 31 of the 77 groups said was that they needed to achieve a better public outreach. The second need is that they wanted to attract more volunteers, or maybe more specifically younger volunteers. Another one was to better understand climate action priorities here in BC and achieve a greater diversity of members, and also help with their website and their social media. Well, and the 3 least pressing needs were help with making posters and signs, help to set up a climate book club or a monthly letter writing circle, etc., and help with technical support such as Zoom, Google Docs, MailChimp, and the members database. And then I provided a couple list of recommendations. You can all read the report later for more details on everything, but recommendations on what we can, the whole goal of this study was for us to understand how we can, as this big network of all those groups, can serve as and give support to those groups, and in terms of helping address those needs that the groups reported, right? So I provided a couple of recommendations on that, and I'm going to share some of them with you. So one of them includes cultivating the relationships that we built during those interviews and the sense of belonging of the groups to WeCan, and helping foster this network community. The second one, which is one of the most important ones in my opinion, is the capacity building training sessions, because WeCan has something really unique, which is we have so many diverse groups and groups with different strengths and needs. And sometimes what is a need of one group is a strength of another group. And we have so many experts here. I'm just honored to have interviewed you all and just learn about everything that you've done. And being able to bring those voices there for groups to learn from one another, it's so special. So I've made some suggestions of specific training sessions, but we can also create more. Some of the suggestions include, for example, a training session on climate communications. How can we better communicate climate in a way that can resonate with people and be successful in that sense? A training session for lobbying, a training session for volunteer recruitment and attracting young members, one for internal strategic planning and administrative issues in the group. Another one that I was a suggestion from one of the members I've interviewed was, should we be the inside information on how should we be a charity, should we be a nonprofit or an informal group? Yeah, and the goal would be to bring people from our groups and experts to lead those sessions for all the groups. Yeah, and then another thing that came out of this interview, thanks to the idea of Max Tyson from the Friends of Cortes Island group, to create this project triage decision-making matrix, which was a tool that we created. You can access that better on the report. But the basic idea is, so sometimes the groups have so many different projects that they would like to create, so many different things you can do for the climate, but it's hard to analyze what is the most impactful project that we can do and prioritize, right? So a simple way that you can do it, you can rank it according to the project's impact, the effort and time that's going to take to create that project. Is that project going to be fun and pleasant for the volunteers? And does it align with the vision of our group? Among other things, I explained the step-by-step in the tool. You can look at it later, but it's a good way to bring conversations to your groups in terms of is the project that I'm doing impactful, or is it just something that we're doing for fun, but does it really have the most impact? And it's a way that groups members can talk to each other and agree on what, and have a consensus of what project they want to pursue, and also how to, and think if my project doesn't have that much impact, how can I incorporate climate education into it? How can I make it more impactful? Another thing is the regional mapping of weekend member groups that Shaylee will be explaining a little more after that we already been able to develop, which is a way to foster collaboration in which the groups can just navigate and they can realize what are the groups that are close to me and how can I partner with them, and also filter through different realms, which is really nice. Another tool is the mind map of intergroup collaborations in the BC climate movement. The idea, this is just an example here, but the idea would be to have all the different weekend member groups in this mind map, and these little arrows, like these green ones, would show what are the groups within the climate movement that a certain group has partnered with in the past and collaborated, like what are the different partners. And the benefits of this mind map is that it can serve as a bridge. So it can be like, I have connections with the View Royal Climate Coalition, but and I know that they are partners with this other group. Maybe they can help me connect with them, or maybe we can partner together on a project. And just like knowing which groups connect with each other, that could be helpful. Another thing is a public database of weekend member groups. So basically a database that we can make accessible for everyone with the basic information from each group, such as what are the main realms the group is acting, where is the group acting. And can be a really good way for example, outsiders to BC, people who are just moving to BC and they are like, which group do I join? How can I join? And also just a way that people can locate each other and each other's work. Another one is an advisory committee support group, in which many of the weekend groups are having members in advisory committees in their local municipalities on like climate or on the environment. And the support group from weekend is a way that those people can get together and they can learn from each other, like best practices on the advisory committees that they're having in different places of the province. Another one is a Slack channel for weekend members, which is a way that different weekend members can just communicate within themselves and talk to each other. And also technical and technological tips. So some ideas that came up were a list that we could provide to the member groups in terms of like, what are the best free tech tools that you can use for example, for creating a website, for creating graphics online. And it saves time from like each person individually needing to search what is the best free website app that I should use to create my website. And Weekend can already provide that list for everyone. Another one is a training session on like basic tech tools and how to use them. Also a Slack channel, one of the Slack channels could be focused on that so that people can ask each other, oh, does anyone have a suggestion on doing XYZ, you know? And the last one is the replicable success story. So we had a lot of good suggestions for our newsletter that we're going to incorporate, we're really appreciative. And one of them is this replicable success story. So we can get a lot of you have achieved really wonderful things in your regions, and we would love to have them being like a spotlight of those projects in our newsletter, in our blog, and just make them accessible so it can be an inspiration for things that can be scaled up across our province projects. So thank you so much for the space, and it was just a pleasure to meet each one of you this summer and to work with Weekend. I'm just so grateful. I've learned so much. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Juliana, for that. Juliana, I have to remember that. That's the Portuguese way of pronouncing it. For this immense body of work. And now I'll give the floor over to Guy, who will give us a brief overview of Weekend's 6 new initiatives. Over to you,
Thanks,
Guy.
Tara. So that's just our current agenda. So we're just a couple of minutes behind. I've actually got 10 things I want to run through in 5 minutes coming out of all this work rethinking. So firstly, we've got a new volunteer called Jocelyn Ray, who's starting to focus on our member groups and do a story in our weekly newsletter about. So if your group, would like to have a story, please get in touch with us and we'll put you in touch with Jocelyn. We are in the midst of bearing in mind that in the last election, it was pretty obvious that half of BC's population knew so little about climate that they were willing to vote for a party that's going to scrap all our climate commitments. We're preparing a 4-sided color brochure, which will go to every MLA in person, like next week or within 10 days. with, on the inside, 5 reasons why the climate crisis is so real and so big and so expensive, and then 5 cost-effective solutions that reduce the cost of living and create jobs. Third one is we've already done this. We wrote a letter to David Eby's Chief of Staff urging that public climate education be included in the minister's new mandate letter. The government's done nothing to educate the public about the realities of all this stuff. And this image, which is from 10 years ago, it shows how the American public just don't know at all. It's probably even worse today because, anyone who voted for Trump really hasn't a clue about the climate. That's pretty obvious. And the same goes with the Pierre Poilievre crowd in British Columbia, in Canada. Number 4 is that we are, in our provincial team, drafting ideal mandate letters. When the new ministers are announced, like next week, they'll all have a mandate letter. And we're going through an internal exercise of can we recraft what those mandate letters should look like? And we're nowhere near getting ready to finish this one, but so it may come out be early December. 5th initiative is that we have a regular now twice yearly meeting with the staff in the Climate Action Secretariat. And we did reach out a while back saying, are there issues we want to bring to you so that we can then see if they can get things moving. This is a behind the scenes. This is not with the minister, it's with the staff. Like if a group has difficulty in communicating with the minister on some issue, we can work behind the scenes with our contacts in the Climate Action Secretariat to get things happening. Our 6th issue is a sense that with the new MLAs who are going to be in the ledge for, next 4 years, it'd be great to have a private list of who knows their MLA, who's friendly with them. So for instance, I'm friendly with all 3 of my local MLAs. They know each other, we respect each other. And when we're not going to make this public, but if any of you are friendly with your MLA, we're going to slowly gather that information so we can know what's going on. 7thly, Shayla will come to this, our new members directory, where we can actually be listing all our member groups and enabling, if someone's interested, they can go to the directory and say, I want to get a group in Abbotsford. What's happening there? And find it and get involved. 8thly is the issue that Juliana talked about. How do we meet our member group's needs? What kind of training courses, what kind of capacity building, stuff like that. 9th is how do we connect with each other? Do we want a Slack channel we can share? Do we set up a Google Groups? Or do we have a monthly just share and connect kind of meeting when it's purely the intention of purely get to know each other and what we're doing? This is all stuff we haven't decided yet. Hoping to get some insights from you this evening. And then finally, because of this communications problem, most of us are doing a pretty poor job at really reaching out. People under 40 are not reading newspapers, not watching television, they're on social media. We're looking to get funding for a training support program where we could help every climate action group to have a content volunteer, a visuals volunteer, a Facebook volunteer, an Instagram volunteer, a radio and TV volunteer, a print media volunteer, how to make videos volunteer, and a LinkedIn volunteer. So that we're really pushing out and reaching the younger generation and not leaving them to the random chaoticness of climate misinformation that is currently being shared. So I'm going to stop sharing there. That's a lot to process, but that's all that's up in the air with us at the moment, and I'll hand it back to Tara.
Thank you for that, Guy. That was such a succinct, even though it was so detailed, very succinct. And it always amazes me, how much we are able to do with the skeletal budget we have. So, kudos to us, if I can say that. And now I think I'll invite Shaylee to go through our membership directory. Shaylee, if you can do that.
Yeah, sure. I'd love to do that. So welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us. I'll just share my screen here. So I'm really excited to show you this initiative that has come out of the interviews that Juliana did. So this is our homepage. You just go to westcoastclimateaction.ca. Right at the top here, you see it says directory. You click directory on that, and it'll take you to our directory, and I'll just walk you through it. It's really straightforward. It takes you to our Explore membership page. Welcome to our directories here. Really, it was created as a way to explore, connect, and collaborate with our community. So right at the top of the page here, it has a pretty standard search bar. You can search for organizations by keyword or something they're interested in working on. You can search for organizations near you, and there's the search bar there. This section here to the left of your screen where it says filter organizations, this is, in my opinion, the most engaging way to look through the directory. So you click where it says more on the bottom here. You can click on this, and this is a breakdown of all the different categories that we have created that our membership are working on. The organizations themselves appear here in the center of the page, and on the far left, you have the map. Now I just have to move my little sidebar out of the way so I can see everything. There we go. So for example, right now we have 260 organizations in our directory. If I want to say, okay, I really want to know who's interested in forestry and water, I would click on forestry and water here, and it automatically sorts the organizations depending on the categories that I put them in. It only shows 20 per page. That's the default. So if you scroll all the way down to the bottom, it says that it shows 20. And here you can flip through the pages to see more of your results. The map is interactive on the right-hand side of the screen. So you can view it in this small little feature if you want, and it'll, when you hover over an organization, it'll pop up on the map, or you can enter full screen map view, and then you can click on organizations and it takes you right to them and it shows where they are and then what they're working on. To leave the map view and go back to the other screen, you just go exit full screen. Now, let's say you're done researching that and you want to know who's working on education and let's go health. How about those two things are very important. So there it shows we have 89 groups that are currently categorized as working on education and health, and you can scroll through them. You can find them on the map. Up here, it shows the filters that you applied, and you can clear them here by clicking clear all, or you can just uncheck them on the filter organizations box. Now, if you want to search for an organization by name or keyword, you can put it in here. You can search for an organization near you and put it in here. If you're putting in organizations in this bar, one thing I've noticed, just to give you a heads up, so if you search for Salmon Arm, for example, that's where I am. Here's two of our local environmental organizations in Salmon Arm. Now, if I just go here and I click this little X, it doesn't reload my page automatically. So what I actually have to do is delete it from the search bar. So if I delete it from the search bar like I just did, and then I hit search again, now it's back to the default. This is a really valuable way to search for organizations. Like Juliana said, if you're new to the area and you want to know who to collaborate with or like what's going on near you, you can search for something happening in your region. And then when you find an organization that you want to connect with, you click on the organization and it takes you to another screen. And this is the organization's listing page. Now, some of these addresses, when I was building the directory, because a lot of these volunteer organizations don't actually have addresses, if I just default it to Victoria, it actually places the organization at like City Hall in Victoria or something. So we have quite a few organizations where the addresses aren't correct. But the information that is listed here, I took right off of the public website. And then if they have a website, it would be listed here. This one has a Facebook page, and you could click on that and it takes you to it. Now, another feature of our directory that we're in the process of rolling out is the login or register feature. So right now I'm in the process of sending out emails to all of our membership. If you're the primary contact of our membership, you will be receiving an email with instructions to log in and manage your own account. So what that means is that when you go to the directory, you would click on login. I'm not going to do it right now because I'm already logged in, but it's a pretty straightforward process. It would take you to your listing. Like, let's say that I was this listing author, like the key person. On the side here, it would say edit, and I would edit, and I could go in and change this information. I could put an address or a phone number. I could upload photos. I could write about what we're working on, any events we have coming up, stuff like that. So really this directory is a key way to enhance collaboration between our membership. You could find potential partners for projects, or run campaigns, events, connect with each other. You can also join with allies in other sectors for cross sector collaboration. It's a way for resource sharing. You can connect with others that have expertise or materials that you might need so that you're not wasting your time like replicating material that's already out there. It's networking opportunities. You can make connections with other people in your region that have similar goals, or you could foster a greater sense of community by working together. It also increases public awareness. So this is really huge because I know a lot of volunteer organizations need more volunteers. So if you have a listing on our website, this is public information. So it raises your group's visible public profile, and that can potentially attract more volunteers or donors or collaborators. So this is our membership directory. I'm very excited to show it to you guys. And if you haven't received an email from me yet with your login instructions to manage your own listing, that will be coming shortly. So I'll just stop sharing my screen right now. And I'm going to have 2 quick polls that I'm going to put up for people to have a look at. I don't know why I got the balloon thing happening. That always happens when I don't know why.
It's okay.
Okay, so the first poll I'm going to open is ranking the top 5 needs. So it's just kind of fun. We want to see what you guys think. So this is thinking back to the needs that Juliana presented about, and there is a list of them. So you'll see in the poll when I launch it, you're just asked to rank the needs that you think are the most important for you or your membership in order of 1 to 5, 1 being the most important. So I'll just wait till some of these results roll in, and then I will share the poll. So you should all be able to see on your screen now. So Achieve Public Outreach was ranked number 1. So 56% said that's their most important thing. Yeah, here, if I just leave my thing there, we can see.
I love the way the ballots are all ranked and counted. We should propose this to the government.
Good.
I'm going to take a photo of that result just so that we can have a look at it later. I didn't see a way to go back and see, so I'll stop sharing this. That was kind of fun. So now we have another little poll, and this one is a little bit more simple. It is just, oh, wait, that is not the right one.
Did you share the results yet? My thing.
I did. Did it not share?
Maybe there'll be a message in the chat if someone's not getting
I
it.
did take a photo of it, so I can.
She did share it.
Good.
Okay,
So
so then,
interesting. It matches completely the order that we found in the report, right? Exactly. This one.
yeah, totally. It totally did. So the next one is in reference to how to build better communication amongst our membership. So how to connect and communicate with each other. So this is just single choice. What method would you prefer to connect and communicate with each other? So your options are a Slack channel. So this is a communication app for mobile and desktop, a Google chat through Google Workspace, a monthly forum to check in, just sort of informal over Zoom, kind of like a virtual coffee house. Discord is another communication app for mobile and desktop. And the last option is Resource and Communication Hub. It could be hosted on weekends, website, and groups could access resources, post updates, and share events. And again, this is just for fun to gauge interest and kind of help with future planning. We love getting feedback from our membership and people really engaged with WeCan.
It's more than fun. We'll probably act on the most popular.
Oh, I'm sure we will, but I mean, nothing's written in stone. We're just,
Yeah.
they're just key bits of information that we need as we build and grow our organization. And supporting our membership is our top mandate. So any way we can figure out how to do that better is good. So it looks like so far our top result at 43% is some kind of resource and communication hub hosted on our website. In second place, we've got the monthly informal check-in over Zoom, and then a Slack channel is where we're at right now. So there's only 10 people who haven't filled it out. I think that's probably
That's
good
great.
enough.
Yep.
I will end the poll and share the results. So you guys should be able to see that on your screen. You might have to scroll up to see the result of the final one on the bottom there. So 43% said resource and communication hub hosted on weekends website where groups can access resources, post updates, and share events. Second, at 34%, was a monthly forum to check in, sort of informal over Zoom. I see that kind of like a social coffee house. And then a Slack channel came in at 21%. Google Chat has very little engagement, and Discord apparently nobody wants. So, okay, well, thank you guys so much for that feedback. What I'm going to do is just take a picture of that, and then I will stop sharing. And I will unspotlight myself and head back over to Tara. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Shaylee.
Yeah, thank you, Shaylee. That was really great. A lot of fun and a lot of knowledge and a lot of work to get, so many, what people have said to get, move forward in that way. Now, the best part of the evening, we are going to open things up for your ideas and suggestions. We have half an hour, I think, to guide our conversations. How can we build a stronger climate movement, and what's our path forward? Okay, so following our discussions, we will present some possibilities for training and group development. Are we still going to do that?
We haven't pinned it down yet. We're just showing all the possibilities out there.
Okay, so
this
we share their possibilities.
We haven't got any plans yet.
Okay, for training and group development, and some possibilities of how we can be more interactive so that the groups can communicate more easily with each other, and we build those connecting bridges to each other.
Plus ideas we haven't thought of that you may want. I mean, someone like Rosalind, I'm looking at you, Rosalind Warner, I'm sure you're just so full of your ideas about how the climate movement needs to progress over the next year.
Well, when I look at the diversity of membership here, it's so impressive. I mean, we have people that care about whales and water and farmers and food, and they're all connected with climate, no doubt about it.
Yeah.
I'm sure, like, one of the challenges that we have in Kelowna is when we try to engage locally, we often don't hear about things until they come up at the last minute. I mean, we just got pulled into a battle over a natural gas facility that's going to be located right in the center of the city. And we get like a few days notice that this is going to happen, and we just try to mobilize, as quickly as we can, but it's not always easy. And there are lots of campaigns that come through, tons of campaigns. So I'm not sure if I really have suggestions, except to say there's a little bit of information overload at times. I absolutely love the newsletter. I read it like cover to cover, which is great. But I wonder if there might be a way to help folks like us who are maybe working on a local campaign, to get even people in our own area. Sometimes it's hard to even get folks motivated even in our own area, and it definitely helps when something goes out across the province, but I don't remember really seeing a lot of local campaigns in the newsletter.
We get what people send us. If people don't send us, we don't know about it.
Yeah, of course. You're relying on what people are sharing as well.
Yeah.
And again, like, it just seems like we're motivated to share when we have an emergency or when we, we have to get going. Like, I don't know how it is in other communities, but in Kelowna, we get the city council agenda on Thursday and the meeting is on Monday.
So
And,
this is where,
so
if there were internal advisory teams, advisory committees on climate or environment that the council has set up, getting someone inside those, and then we were talking about having a support group for people on those committees so as to know how to best operate in them and not be sidelined, because then you can, and how to establish even in one or two councillors who can feed you information in advance and tell you what's happening. So yeah, useful because
that would definitely be useful for sure.
Yeah. And even the application deadlines, when to get on those committees, sometimes isn't shared. It's just a small print in the newspaper and you missed the deadline to apply to join that committee. But anyway, Tara, we got some hands up, right? Sue Maxwell has a hand up there.
Oh, okay. Sue, please go ahead. I can't see the hands.
Sure, sure. I got a yellow background around my hand, but I was on our local council in Whistler for a term, and even as a council member, you only get the council packages on a Thursday for a Tuesday thing. So it's not just the members of the public that don't have advance notice. Some really good councils will sort of say, oh, here's what the calendar is and when certain key issues will be coming. But in general, you don't know that. But I like that idea of having counselors are going to have to read all the packages anyway. So having the friendly counselors alert the groups to like, hey, these issues are coming up at this next meeting is a helpful way to do it, because some of them are quite long, those packages.
I certainly know with the Nanaimo Climate Action Hub, I'm not sure if anyone's here from there, where they have a 5-4 split on council, because one of the councillors will say, this is coming up, please mobilize your people to persuade the 5th vote to give you a 5-4 positive result, which has happened several times now. But without that lead between someone on council and the group, they wouldn't know it was happening, and they wouldn't know when to do the pressure by email and phoning. Who else is sitting on ideas? Ron, on what's your perspective from Denman on where the climate movement moves from here? Ron Wilson. You need to unmute.
I mean, from our perspective, I think one thing we'd like to see is more of a provincial movement that happens where people are perhaps, meeting in, like once a month, we all meet at our MLA's office, and demonstrate and pick a particular theme for that, like, no more LNG, or, stop financing, or, whatever, and build up to maybe Earth Day next, April or something. So every month we're doing something, and they get the idea that the whole province is kind of up in arms, that they aren't doing what they should. And that's just my suggestion.
Yeah. So Mary has a hand up, Tara. Mary Wagner.
Mary, can you unmute yourself? Thank you.
Sure, yeah. I'm a counselor for Langford, so in local government, and I was glad to hear the other person from Whistler say we get the information package, same as you. So unfortunately, a lot of the information is controlled by staff, and even with our really good staff that I get along with really well, there always seems to be a mad scramble at the end. So yeah, anytime we can get ahead of something, it's challenging, but we do need to try to keep getting that information sooner. It's very frustrating to be able to mobilize. It's almost impossible when you've got the weekend, right? So that's an issue. But I did want to say that I'm quite concerned about the federal election. So since that, I believe, will be coming up in the next year, I'd like to see some focus on really this public education to say the climate issue should be top priority. We always have to hear about housing and safety. I mean, they're important. I shouldn't be rolling my eyes or something, but there are certain issues that are taking over the conversation, and climate seems to be going to the back burner. And Polyev is going to be fear mongering and saying, we can't afford to not vote for him. So I'm quite concerned about that federal election. So anything we can do to educate the public to help them see the importance of climate in that election would be, I think, a good focus.
Thanks. Catherine Jane's got a hand up now. You need to unmute, Catherine.
That's right.
Jay.
Well, I just wanted to add to what Guy was saying. The Nanaimo Climate Action Hub does connect with city councilors, but we also have people on the inside in City Hall who alert us when things are coming up, which is very helpful. And various members of our hub have cultivated those relationships over the years. And to the point about the federal election, one thing I found really, really frustrating during the provincial election is that, the top issues were affordability, healthcare, and housing. All of those are climate issues, people. We need to draw a direct line between climate and all those issues. When I was talking to people, I would say, well, climate is an affordability issue. How much has your insurance gone up because of climate change? How much is your grocery bill up because we're having to import fruits and vegetables that used to be grown here? I mean, we no longer have Okanagan peaches and nectarines, for example. They all had to be brought in from Washington State. And then housing, well, if your house gets swept away by a landslide, that's pretty expensive. We want to keep our housing stock. We don't want to see it destroyed. So there's ways that we can make those direct connections, like climate isn't just out there somewhere and it's not having any effect on our own lives. I mean, we're seeing it now. 4 people died in the latest atmospheric river. One woman whose house got swept away.
This is why we're doing the 4-sider to every MLA, to actually spell out the 5 climate initiatives that create jobs and reduce the cost of living.
Yeah.
Sorry, we got Jeanette and then Andy.
Okay. Jeanette, can you please unmute yourself?
I'm a little hesitant about saying this, but when the federal election was brought up, in terms of within a group like this where we have a lot of contacts, is there any way that kind of locally we can try to think strategically so we don't end up in certain areas with splitting the vote and having Poilievre get in? I mean, it needs to be really done strategically, but there are, there are certain writings probably where that could make a difference. But obviously that's not something we're doing as a group. But I just wondered if there's feelers out to people that are directly politically involved as to whether that can happen. So that certainly when it comes to climate, there is a united voice on it from whatever. Anyway.
Thanks. All I can respond is you've opened a can of very wriggly worms. And the wriggling is always local in each particular constituency or riding. And we can, as non-partisan, has to be very careful about coming up for any particular party. It's a very tricky one. I'm sure Andy's got some good experience on that one. Andy Shadrack.
Okay, the one area where I wish we could do more is around supporting First Nations who are on the front line opposing the LNG. I worked for about 18 months with the Wet'suwet'en. And in the sentencing, the justice noted he'd never received so many letters of support for this particular hereditary chief. And I wish that environmental groups all across the province had sent letters in as well, because what's happening to First Nations, particularly in the north, is absolutely outrageous.
That's why in 15 minutes time, we're going to have Kai Nagata from the north briefing us on exactly what we can and should be doing. Kai's just joined us. Welcome, Kai.
Yeah. And I think Ilan has her hand up, Kai. So I'll just go to Ilan.
Yeah, you need to.
Thanks. Sorry. Yeah, I just want to say that I was at the Vancouver Writers Festival, and there was a woman. One of the sessions was with people that were concerned about the ocean and environmental issues there, and seeing like a fish author, Amarina Kingdom. When people asked what we could do, you know, they said, you know, the audience had a talk back and asked what we could do. In the three things that she recommended, the second one was that we should write the federal and provincial governments to correct and to look at their environmental regulations, because they are the ones that have the power to stop, like Rosemary mentioned about being in Kelowna, and they are the governments that we must, those the provincial and federal governments have say over all the fossil fuel burning things and the pipelines. And the only way is to tell the governments, those governing bodies, that their environmental regulations are not strong enough. And when they are strong, then the CER, the Canadian Energy Regulator, can just get rid of them and give permits to the companies to build at the risk of our environment. So that's I just thought her suggestion was great. That's one thing we could do, is write our governments about their environmental issues and their regulatory bodies.
Great. And the next, Catherine, would you like to unmute yourself?
Yeah. I just wanted to say, in response to the person who was talking about banding together in some way to prevent Polyev from winning, because the environmentally friendly parties, the vote is split. I don't have firsthand experience of this myself, but my daughter and her family live on Bowen Island, and I believe from what they have said to me that one of the reasons we got that Green elected in West Van Sea to Sky was because there was a local movement to do exactly that, to prevent vote splitting. And if anybody is interested and wants to contact me, I could try and connect them up with somebody on Bowen who might know something about that.
Okay, and now there's Satya. Satya Brown, can you unmute yourself? Thanks.
I've been doing something, giving talks. I work with the physicians for environment, vote for the planet. And I've given talks in a number of groups and clubs, garden clubs, at church and so on. And basically it was showing people how to look at platforms, what to look for in platforms, and looking for more detail and so on. Now, I was working in Surrey, and we were pretty much NDP most of the time. But I noticed that my group, suddenly the Conservatives are in because the Greens went up and the NDP went down. So the Conservatives got in. So, you know, this turns around and bites us too. This problem of the division in the progressive groups is not helping us.
Yep, it's a big problem. Thanks, Satya.
Yeah. And I think Max is there, Guy. Max,
yeah.
Can you unmute yourself?
My name
by the way, can you introduce where you're from and the group you're with when you,
my name is Max Tennant. I'm with Climate Convergence Metro Vancouver. And yeah, I really liked what the guy said from Denman Island. I think his name was Ron Wilson. I just want to emphasize kind of what he said, which is having a coordinated action on Earth Day. And I think it would be really cool, especially with having like 300 different organizations. Like, we don't just have the big cities here. We have like Denman Island, we have Pender, we have so many different locations. I think it would be such a great opportunity if we can like had a mechanism to help whatever group wants to, and if it is everyone here, but whatever group wants to kind of have a mechanism to help groups coordinate actions like that one on Earth Day, because I think that's a really awesome idea. And I think the more groups you have and the more locations you have in BC, I think definitely we'll be able to amplify our voice. Definitely here in BC, and if we do it, it's possible it could have a ripple effect for places in other parts of Canada, but also North America to follow suit. So I just want to say thank you, Ron, for that suggestion, and I think we need to kind of I think that would be great if we were able to follow through with that idea and coordinate an action as part of We Can. And Earth Day is an awesome day as well. So
Jason, I have you up on my screen. Can you unmute yourself, please?
And thanks, Max, for that. Yeah.
Thanks, Tara. Thanks, Max, for that point. I had to just sort of follow up because
Jason, can you introduce yourself first?
Yeah, my name's Jason Helmerson. My pronouns are he, him. I'm in so-called Vancouver, and I'm a coordinator at the Wilderness Committee. My job is to support the climate campaign there by doing community outreach. And specifically, I'm really interested in doing that outreach and providing that support to activists who are not located in the Lower Mainland. That's why I kind of had a reaction when I heard Rosalind speaking earlier, talking about Kelowna, which had a very close election result in the last campaign. Just with my experience, the government views us as being a very Victoria, Vancouver focused group. And so anything that I can do to try and grow us outside of that is going to be my priority. And so I'd love to hear from folks in the Okanagan or Northeast, or in order to do what we can to provide support and resources to them. And then in the chat, I just wanted to draw attention. I shared an essay that Rebecca Solnit, who's one of my favorite writers, shared, and she has a bunch of writing that she produced after the last time we went through this with that game show host being president. And it's really useful in terms of like not losing hope, not giving up, not giving into climate despair, because this, I think, blocks a lot of people from becoming more involved, taking the next step, and it kind of falls to us as organizers and climate activists to help people to understand it's not too late. The actions we do or still have consequence and are worthwhile. And Rebecca Solnit's writing is going to give us those arguments. So thanks for giving me a second to chat. And as always, just very grateful to We Can and everybody at this space for everything you do to bring people together.
Thanks so much, Jason. And in my group, I actually had, a couple of gurus who could do the climate cafes with us. And I just wanted to ask Greg Galloway, would you like to mention something about that? If I'm not putting you on the spot.
Yeah, hi. You did put me on the spot, but that's okay. Yeah, we've done climate cafes here in Golden, BC with our group is called Wild Site, a nonprofit environmental group, and we did find them to be successful. I think people just wanting to kind of feel like they have a safe place to, express their anxiety about the situation and to discuss it and not feel alone was definitely successful. And I had mentioned to Tara that we had a really successful organizer of that group. So we could be a resource in that, in offering up strategies for organizing a climate cafe.
So Greg, if I can jump right in there, this is my immediately think, can you ask that organizer or yourself to do a write-up on what you did that we can then share in our newsletter?
Yeah, sure.
As a how-to, and just send it over to us and we'll promote it. That's what we're for.
Sure, it's a good idea.
Thanks, Greg.
Do I have time to pick on some more people?
Well, we said we'd have Kai at 20 past. So one more, is there one? Go on, pick on one more person.
Okay, Mariam, would you like to join in, since you've done, all over the world, you've done climate action? Or am I putting you?
Yeah. Hello, everyone. As I also talked to you before, I think in order, if we want also to maybe leverage the people's awareness about the green society and also the climate action, I think we can do it based on the every small group, based on each maybe community center. So we can start like a monthly gathering with adults. Then we can also consider kids and a younger maybe generation, to give them some also idea, like a workshop together with something like a hands-on, specifically for the maybe for like a compass of how they can also gather their food, or how they can also make their own fertilizer, then they can plant. It's going to be also enjoyable for kids, and they can learn how also to use their waste products in a properly way. I think the workshop is gonna be perfect. I mean, also to different type of workshop, but it needs to be in a regular base, not just once in a blue moon. So if it's in a regular base, monthly, then slowly people are coming towards the community center. Also, then they can register. Probably it's gonna be very free to also book a room over there.
Great. And I have one last person. Guy, can we? Jim, would you like to unmute yourself?
Yeah, I'm Jim. I'm not associated with any group. I'm just here as an individual. I'm basically a hermit anyway. And I think what I'm going to say is not popular. If we want to get the message out, I think we have to start being way more honest about this, about the seriousness of the situation. We have to stop soft selling it. The level of ecological and social inequity that is out there does not get solved without us here in Canada on the West Coast paying a very, very, very high price. And that message is hidden all the time. And I think the general population feels lied to. They don't know how they're being lied to, but because they're not getting the real message that, sorry, our lives are going to be very, very seriously impacted to get out of this. We're wasting our time.
We're all on board with you on that one, Jim.
Yeah, Jim.
We're all on board.
Absolutely. I think now, are there any more? I think Jim was the last person, so I think we'll go on to Kai now. So yes. So now for the final part of our assembly, we want to focus on the struggle that's developing in BC's Northwest. There is growing opposition to the proposed Prince Rupert gas transmission pipeline, which is intended to feed fracked gas to planned LNG plants for export to Asia. The Union of BC Indian Chiefs and the Gitanyow Band Council have requested our allyship. Kai will share what's happening, what's needed, and how we can effectively take action. Now, it's my immense pleasure to introduce Kai as well. great part of my job. I get to do this. Kai Nagata is a fifth generation Japanese and English Canadian who lives on Gitsan territory in northern BC. In his spare time, he enjoys getting out on the land, growing and foraging local food, and cooking with family and friends. Early in his career, Kai worked as a journalist for CBC, CTV, and other outlets. After volunteering with Dogwood, he joined as a campaigner in 2014. Since 2016, he has been Dogwood's communications director and our eyes and ears for the North. Only after Indigenous elders and allies is the eyes for the North. A very warm welcome, Kai.
Thanks very much for having me. Well, I have the duty and privilege of reporting out to you tonight about the PRGT pipeline, next steps on the company's attempt to secure an unlimited and unexpiring project certificate from the BC government and what we might be able to do to stop that. So I'll start with just some observations from the ground in the Nass Valley. The PRGT pipeline construction has wrapped up for the fall. They did 2 months of very superficial work and finished early. And so the project certificate expires on November 25th in less than 2 weeks. And the company is supremely confident that they have knocked over enough trees and pushed enough dirt around to get a substantial start determination from the BC government, which would extend their 10-year-old project certificate forever and would allow them to go and seek investment and start full-scale construction next year. So what did they do over the last couple of months? We've been watching them quite closely. They cut a 25-meter wide corridor through 42 kilometers of mostly second and third growth forest in the Nass Valley. And they built a project workforce accommodation, they call it, a man camp, with space for a couple of hundred workers. It's just trailers on a rectangle of dirt. And that is the first first work camp. And in so doing, they claim to have spent $335 million. So the company is trying to use the largest numbers possible, I think, to make the case to the BC government that they are past the point of no return, that they can't be stopped now, and that it's in the public interest to essentially bend the rules and grant this unprecedented substantial start to allow this project to continue under outdated laws. And what I mean is that the project was approved in 2014 by the Christy Clark government under a previous version of the Environmental Assessment Act, which we've since updated, and before the province adopted the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People into law, which includes the right to free, prior, and informed consent. And that is where the rubber hits the road in northern BC because of all of the communities, Indigenous and non-Indigenous communities, that are standing up in opposition to this project, that are actively withholding their consent, and in fact blockading project construction and building village sites, occupation on the land along the pipeline route as we speak. And what the company is hoping to do is essentially build this project despite the opposition by essentially freezing the clock in 2014 and building this under the same legal regime as Coastal GasLink. And so we face the very real prospect of another pipeline the same size as Coastal GasLink, crossing not just the Skeena watershed, but the Nass, which is becoming an engine of food security for the entire North. The salmon production that is coming out of the glacier-fed tributaries of the Nass River right now is feeding people all the way down to the Salish Sea. And all of that is put at risk by another major pipeline project. And the BC government faces a crossroads, and they can decide to try to build this thing through injunctions and militarized cops and basically unleashing international capital on our communities again, or they can take a different path. And that's the path demanded by the Gitanyow chiefs, which is that they simply let this project certificate expire in 2 weeks, as it was always intended to do. And if the company wants to reapply for a new environmental assessment, they can apply under the new Environmental Assessment Act, and they can go through a new and modern environmental review. So that is the very reasonable request, I think, of the Gitanyow chiefs and their allies, including the Union of BC Indian Chiefs. And that is the decision that will be facing our next environment minister very, very soon. And so we have a swearing-in ceremony coming up in Victoria on Monday, where we will find out who our new cabinet ministers are, and that includes the new environment minister. And that person will be responsible. In fact, this will be the first file on their desk, because PRGT plans to apply for a substantial start on Monday. And they want the new environment minister to bend over backwards for them, first day on the job, and grant them this loophole, this permanent extension of the certificate. So we are going to have to push back. And so Dogwood is getting ready, and I would encourage all of you in your respective organizations to think about what levers you might have. Part of it might depend on who the person is that is named as environment minister, but they are facing a monumental decision right out of the gate, and we need to show up because you can rest assured that the pipeline lobbyists and the oil and gas lobbyists have already prepared their game plan to try to browbeat the new minister into approving this. And so, yes, there are some legal strategies underway, and there are some preparations for the worst case scenario should the government approve this. But we also, I think, need to find other ways to exert pressure on the minister and on their cabinet colleagues. And I'm open to your ideas about all of that. So that's a sort of rough overview. I wanted to leave lots of time for questions. And so, yeah, if you want to see pictures, if you have questions about the project itself or any of the steps coming up, I'm here and I'm at your disposal.
Hello, Kai. It's Doug Cordemosh. I'm with Doctors for Planetary Health. I'm also part of the Weekend Gang. The phrase that struck me from your presentation was in the public interest, that the project has to be in the public interest. And I'm wondering if that is the phrase that can be used to derail the project as well in some way.
Yeah, I mean, that's obviously subjective, and it's up to the ministers making the decision. I think one point that I really want to make is that if this goes ahead, it will be on the backs of working people, not just in the north, but across the province. And the only way that this pipeline and the associated gas terminal are viable is with a $3 billion transmission line connected to the $16 billion Site C dam. And that dam, the entire capacity of that power project would be consumed by this one gas terminal. And so we would face a situation where working families across British Columbia have to pay higher hydro bills for the privilege of exporting our gas to other countries. And of course, as Guy has pointed out, not reducing emissions by one molecule. So the question is, are we going to make working families subsidize gas exports at a time when the market overseas is collapsing, when countries like South Korea and Japan are already reducing their demand? And are we going to make the Nisga'a people pay for this? Because the other element that I haven't mentioned is that this project was originally proposed by TC Energy, the company that built Coastal GasLink. And in June, they sold it to the Nisga'a Nation in partnership with a mysterious LNG company from Houston, Texas. And so if indeed they've spent $335 million on construction in the last 2 months, that is $8 million per kilometer of trees that they cut down. If you extrapolate that to the entire length of the project, they would have to spend $7 billion just to cut the trees down, let alone grading the right of way, digging the trench, buying the pipe, welding the pipe, laying the pipe. This is a ridiculous sum for the work that they've done already. And if it's in any way true, then the Nisga'a people need to ask some very serious questions about what they're on the hook for. Because if they are going to be the owners of this thing, they will be the last ones to be paid out if it ever turns a profit. And so in the name of economic reconciliation, we have the oil industry and our politicians selling projects that no private company wants to build to Indigenous communities who have no choice in the matter. And the people of the Nisga'a Nation were never consulted. There was no referendum. There was no democratic mandate whatsoever in order to proceed with this project. And they would have to shoulder the risks of going ahead with it. And so that's, those are the people who I'm in communication with daily, who I'm most worried about. There's all of the communities along the route itself. And then there's the ratepayers all across BC who would be paying the costs of electrifying this project and subsidizing the oil industry in so many other ways. So I think that whatever our messages to the BC government, yes, climate is important. We can't forget the financial costs that will be inflicted on people in the Nass Valley and all across BC. Again, to take a resource, a non-renewable resource out from under our feet and export it to power economies overseas.
Thanks for that, Kai. And I think there's a question from Jeanette.
Yes, I'm wondering if we can really focus on the economics as opposed to finance, because economics looks to the future as well. And it seems to me that some of the costs you're talking about, they're very real. And I totally agree. When Dogwood raised this a couple of months ago, it caught my attention, and it's something that we need to act on. But in terms of the economics, what you're talking, there are two things that went into my mind. One, the example that we all know of how much we initially opposed the Trans-Canada, the pipeline that the federal government bought, and how much we know that is costing Canadians. And we knew that was a likelihood. And the other thing is, in terms of looking to the future, I don't know how widespread there's a report recently came out. I think Pembina, and I know the Suzuki Foundation was either involved in sponsoring whatever, but it's an excellent report that basically says that LNG is not going to be a bonanza for BC, that we are not going to and I just wonder if we can use some of those things, like partly the same kind of language arguments that are made by the other side, but turn those ones on their head. I mean, all the ones that that it makes no sense whatsoever to have this pipeline, all of those seem so sensible and clear. But strategically, I wonder if there's something we can do with that.
Sure, I'm dropping the Turning Tides report that you mentioned into the chat. That's by Carbon Tracker. It was commissioned by the David Suzuki Foundation. And yeah, it points out that LNG is increasingly risky. And that is why, again, the industry is trying to socialize those risks by passing off the ownership of these projects to First Nations and guaranteeing the construction with taxpayer-backed loan guarantees, and in extreme cases like Trans Mountain, simply forcing the taxpayers to pay the cost of the infrastructure. And that is, unfortunately, the sort of bottom line. That's the benchmark that industry has been given now, is that if you run into enough trouble, you'll get a bailout from the taxpayers. And that completely changes their their own risk calculation. So yes, I think there's arguments to be made around the sort of folly of not even the long-term economics, right? Like, as I mentioned, South Korea and Japan are already cutting their LNG imports, cutting their consumption. And so the trend line is moving in a very dangerous direction if you are unwillingly invested in or forced to finance or subsidize the build out of this industry. And yes, I think there might be a world in which politicians that are sort of motivated by rational consideration of the facts would, be open to those economic arguments. The issue is that they are being force-fed misinformation by fossil fuel lobbyists. And those fossil fuel lobbyists are some of the people who are closest to them. They are family members, they are spouses of their colleagues, they are former colleagues. The people who are hired to go into those offices and to bend those ministers to the will of the oil and gas companies, they are hired because they have familial and political connections to the people making those decisions. And that is what we have to keep in mind, is that they are being, again, lied to and threatened by lobbyists who are hired because of the influence and the connections that they wield with the NDP government. So it's a very potent combination, and I wish that rational arguments would carry the day. But the truth is that we're going to have to rely on that and more. I mean, they have to understand that the consequences, the political consequences of going ahead with this, are worse than offering that off ramp now. In other words, it's going to hurt more, and they are going to be at greater chance of losing their precarious majority if they go ahead with this. And if they're not convinced of that, then I'm afraid they are just going to go ahead and approve this project and allow it to proceed. They have to be made aware. They have to understand and feel deep in their brainstem the political danger of moving ahead with this, and that's why I'm so adamant that we include the sort of household economic arguments, and we talk about the cost of living and the costs that will be imposed on ratepayers all across BC.
Now I'll just ask Ron, would you like to unmute yourself and ask the question?
Yeah, I mean, thanks very much. I mean, LNG might have been a good idea 15 years ago, but it certainly is not now, as the David Suzuki report that you cited. The question is, how do we get the message? I mean, it's unfortunate that there's like 1 week between cabinet ministers being appointed and a deadline for this November 25th. I mean, is that truly the reality? And if so, I mean, how do we get this message? How do we, push the government to be aware that what they're doing is catastrophically, terrible?
Thanks, Ron. Yeah, I'll clarify the timeline. So cabinet sworn in on Monday, the 18th. That is when PRGT is submitting its report and its application for a substantial start determination. The project certificate expires on November 25th, and that's when they have to down tools. Although, as I mentioned, they've already done that. The government doesn't have to make the decision by November 25th. They can let the certificate expire, and they can retroactively reinstate it at any point in the future. There's no expiry on that decision. And so what I think is more realistic is sort of like a December 23rd decision, something sometime just before the Christmas holidays, where they probably approve the Slissons LNG terminal and the substantial start determination for PRGT, unless in the intervening time, we can create enough political instability for them to sort of recalculate that decision. And I think the lawsuits are definitely important and helpful. The blockades and the work that's happening on the ground, very helpful. But also, again, leveraging our own relationships and our own geography in order to get in front of whoever can convey that message of political danger back to the NDP brain. It's essentially David Eby, right? We know he's centralized power in the Premier's office. In fact, there's a significant restructuring happening in the Premier's office right now. The Chief of Staff is gone. The Deputy Chief of Staff is gone. all of the people who were closest to Eby in advising him in the lead up to the election have essentially been tossed overboard. And so there's going to be a new team around the premier, and that makes the premier's decision even more powerful in that context. He's less likely to take advice from people who've been there for a couple of weeks. And so really it's about getting to Eby and convincing him that this is, again, the pathway to disaster for the parliamentary NDP in British Columbia, and that as the sort of last bastion of a nominally progressive political force in control of the government in Western Canada, that he really could ground the ship of the NDP on this decision. And so I think, yeah, again, I'm interested in your ideas on tactics, but we have to be able to get to the people who are really making the decision, and that is the cabinet ministers around the table, and chief among them, Premier Eby.
Thank you for that, Kai. And I have Mary Wagner. Please, can you unmute yourself?
Sure, yeah. Hi. So again, local councillor with City of Langford. I was wondering how that decision actually gets made, as in where's the best effort? Do MLAs vote on this, or is it just a cabinet decision? And is it that ministry staff would be good to lobby? I don't know any of these people, but like, is it worth bugging my local MLA? Probably, but who's really going to make this decision? You started to talk about that being really Eby, but is there a vote on this, or it's a decision behind closed doors? And then can we embarrass them in the media, like saying, I think this economic argument, like the taxpayer is going to pay for this. So I think that's the angle, is that every single person in the province of British Columbia is going to be subsidizing a private company, and that's ridiculous and going backwards. Then there's the whole, like, I would want to talk about we should be investing in renewables and stuff, but I don't think there's any time to do that. I feel like we have to do this public shaming, unfortunately. So I don't know who has media contacts, but I think that's another important aspect of making people really aware that they are paying for this, that the average Joe and Jane is going to be footing the bill so that somebody else can get rich, because they don't like that.
Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah.
Well, the answer is that it's a cabinet decision. So the official process is that the BC Environmental Assessment Office forwards a decision package to the minister, but we know that the ministers don't get to make their own decisions on their own. So the person who's the environment minister is important. That's the person who will have to stand at a podium and talk about this decision. But at least based on the previous iteration of the Eby government, these decisions are made at the cabinet table. There's no public vote. MLAs don't have a voice. Now, MLAs might be able to exert influence on friends in cabinet, and there might be a great deal of MLAs in cabinet because there's so few NDP MLAs. And so it could be that the plurality of, or the majority of the NDP members are in the room for this decision. So yeah, I think it's going to be important to pressure your MLA. I think it's going to be important, especially if the person who's named environment minister is somebody who has relationships with those of us in the climate movement, broadly speaking. And so we don't know. That's a closely guarded secret until Monday. But I think we'll have some clarity, perhaps, on how we can approach those people once we know whose names are attached to which portfolio. And then there is no time limit on the decision. And I would say in a case like this, a delay is a win as well. And so if there's enough noise and enough sort of turbulence ahead of the decision, it's also possible that other priorities take over, right? This is a government that is governing with a very, very slim majority. The opposition is going to be looking for all sorts of ways to trip them up. And there's, of course, all sorts of ongoing real and political crises unfolding all the time. And so, yeah, if we can simply push this back on their agenda, again, that gives more time for the nations along the pipeline route to get organized, to build, to prepare legal arguments, to fundraise, and it allows us to continue building that momentum towards a rejection, or towards a It's not even a rejection. Just let the fucking thing expire, pardon my French, and just let them reapply for a modern environmental assessment under modern legislation. It's just, it's really a question of just following the law as written rather than trying to bend the rules for a private company to profit at all of our expense. So yeah, I think that's how we have to frame it. No more special treatment for oil and gas billionaires. No more special treatment for companies in Houston, Texas, like remember Kinder Morgan? I don't understand why these people should take precedent over the ratepayers and the citizens of British Columbia. And yeah, the fact that the Nisga'a Nation owns this thing is nothing to be proud of for the BC government, and it puts Nisga'a people at enormous financial risk. So yeah, I think after Monday we should have a better idea who is in those seats, and we can think about how to exert as much pressure on them as possible to delay that decision.
I'd like to call upon Kate Walker and then Guy, and then we have to have, I'm so sorry, we have to have a hard cut because we are nearing the end of our.
Okay, I'll try to be quick. Thank you, Guy, and thank you everyone for your good questions. It is not in the public interest, and someone mentioned that this project should be in the public interest, but it's not in the public interest when so much of our water is being poisoned forever through the fracking process. It's drying up our aquifers, our bogs, the forests in the north, the forest fires. How do we get water as part of this conversation when we're talking to our MLAs and to EB to try and get this stopped? Because this is water we can't get back again. Site C was a disaster and continues to be. So how do we put water back in there? They're not transparent about even how much water they're using.
No. Well, not to be cynical, but this is the government that asked all of us to take shorter showers because of the drought, and did not curtail water consumption by fracking companies. They're telling us that, yeah, we have to take personal responsibility for the drought, and they're unwilling to put any roadblocks or restrictions on the extraction of oil and gas. So I don't know the answer to that. I don't know how to make them understand the consequences of their actions. I think it would help if more of them represented rural areas. Unfortunately, the NDP has been whittled down to essentially an urban party in Vancouver Island and Victoria. And so, you know, I remember asking Dave Eby to come up north. I remember asking him if he owned a pair of blue jeans, like if he'd ever driven a pickup truck, if he'd ever been to any of the communities that he wanted to represent as a minister and later as premier. And you know, he's a very cerebral guy. He's a lawyer from Ontario. You know, he understands the world through that particular lens. And unfortunately, I think a lot of our MLAs and MPs and decision makers across the province live in a bubble in the legislature, on social media, and in their the briefing notes prepared for them by industry-friendly staffers and lobbyists. So I don't know how to make them think about water. We've been trying for years. I don't know whether we're going to crack that nut in the next couple of weeks. I think, again, this has to be about saving their own political hides. And they have to understand that if they go ahead with this and you know, inflict Coastal GasLink 2.0 on all of us, that it will lead to the demise of their government and the destruction of their political party.
Thank you. And Guy, would you like to end with the last question?
Yeah, thanks, Kai. We all look to Dogwood to be the leading source of advice and information on this. If we were to, pressure's on. If we were to mobilize 1,000 letters being written in, we've got Roger Branton saying, would letters to the Premier help? I've got Keith Whiting saying, what's the best online source for information on the Gitanyow and other opposition? I've got Kate Madigan saying, I'm an old-fashioned letter writer. I hope I can find all these details that damn the project in Dogwood articles. And what's the First Nations part of this? So if we were to mobilize to get everyone writing, it would really help if there was a set of bullet points, so at each bullet point's no more than 3 lines. You know, these are the key points that people can cut and paste and write in, because I think the vulnerability all the new MLAs who are coming in with enthusiasm, and certainly the 3 I know personally on the coast here, there's an opportunity for them to sort of say, this is a new government. Do we really want to start by putting the muddiest foot forward in the muddiest bit of politics there is? And they can, express their voice in caucus if they know this is a choice that's coming up and it's not a Friday evening thing or the day before Christmas. So to you, the request is, can you, or I could work with you to put together that simple list of bullet points. These are the top arguments. These are the First Nations people who are themselves asking for us to support. At the Gitanyow Band Council, Union of BC Indian Chiefs, they're asking for us to support them. We need to have it made easy for us with clear bullet points, who to write to, when to get it done by, and we can push that to hell in our newsletter and mobilize everyone to get it done. No pressure. You've lost all your hair already, so it's no problem, right?
Yeah, I need to, I should have invested in the hair transplant industry when I had a chance. Yeah, the Gitanyow Chiefs, I've just posted their news feed in the chat as well. Just to draw a distinction, it's not the band council, it's the hereditary chiefs who have responsibility for the whole of Gitanyow territory in the Nass watershed. So on Monday, Dogwood will launch a new action with those bullet points that you're asking for, that will allow people to contact a selection of cabinet ministers, whoever gets named the environment minister, the new energy, mines and BC Hydro minister, the premier. We will send that out Monday afternoon, if all goes according to schedule, once we know who those ministers are. And yeah, we'll be very loud about this over the next couple of weeks. So yeah, why don't we just stay in touch? And if we get more information about how to hone and target that message and to whom, we will of course pass that on as soon as we know it.
And we in turn will send out a special one topic only email to all our, we got 2,500 people on our list. You've got already 10,000 on yours. So just get the word out there. And this is where we all need to chime in. This is another, gas pipeline all over again. And we don't want to have to be fighting it in the way that the Wet'suwet'en have to do. We want to stop this at the beginning, especially with information I dug up that normally, when people don't know, normally a gas company has to burn 10% of the gas to do the cooling to minus 162 to liquefy it. By using clean electricity and that $3 billion pipeline, there's 10% more gas available to be burnt in the Asian markets. The exact same amount of climate pollution happens.
Yeah.
The whole thing is for nothing whatsoever. And Evie said, as long as it's kept off BC's books. Anyway, we need to wrap up soon because we're getting to the end of all this. Thanks so much for your work, Kai, on behalf of all of us and all of you in Dogwood.
Yeah. Thanks very much.
Yeah. So yeah, Guy, Kai, we're really all charged up, all engines fired up and ready to go, writing these letters. And of course, the engines are all fired up with renewable energy, of course. And thank you, everyone, for continuing to build people power and momentum. So just a couple of quick requests as we wrap up tonight's event. We'll be putting some links in the chat. The first one is for our feedback survey. Please take a few moments to complete it, as it's really vital for helping us to improve the Capa experience for you. And while that's happening, Shaylee is going to put on some nice music from Doug Courtmanch. And I'll just tell you what are the other links you have to click on. So while you're filling out the survey, we'll post more links in the chat. There will be links to donate because, as I mentioned, we're on a shoestring budget, links to become a member, volunteer, and to subscribe to our climate news roundup. And with that, we'd like to thank all of you, our fellow climate activists, our audience, Kai, Juliana, always humbled by your presence and participation. But last but not least, our band of merry men and women on the Capa organizing team, Doug, Shaylee, Guy, Brenda, Allison, Roger, and myself. Thank you very much and have a great evening.
And Tara, can I do my wrap-up thing? If we want to hold hands together in this virtual thing, put your hand up like this. Move it so it's half across the screen. and you're now holding hands with the person next to you. So I'm holding hands with Kai. Kai's handing hold with Shady, who hasn't got her hands up yet. No, it's just, we can actually bond together. We are a group, we're working together on this thing. Yay, everyone, all of you. So many thanks.
You got to be in gallery view for this to work.
You got to be in gallery view. Yeah, you got to go to gallery view, top right for that one.
Yeah. Okay, but please answer the survey. Now it's time with the lovely music from Doug.
I got the climate strike blues and I'm taking my mother downtown. I got the climate strike blues and I'm taking my mother downtown. Put her on a stretcher, walk her all around. Well, she needs a lot of help. I'm hoping that the people will care. Well, she needs a lot of help and I'm hoping that the people will care. When they see her on the stretcher, just laying there. She's bruised and battered and beaten up everywhere. Yeah, she's bruised and battered and beaten up everywhere. You know, all she needs is tender love and care. Gonna find a place where the people all stop to meet. Gonna find a place where the people all stop to meet. I'm gonna listen to the Salish anthem and feel the drum beat. See, I need people to help me hold her up. You see, I need more people to help me hold her up. She's my mother on my own, I can't do enough. She's getting too old, she don't stay out too late. She's getting too old and she don't stay out too late. We won't make it to the news cause it's owned by the petro state. I got the climate strike blues, but I'm striking out anyway. I got the climate strike blues, but I'm striking out anyway. I'm just hoping that somebody hears what I have to say.